Hey guys, Bowie here, and this is 9 ways to counter OUTWORLD DEVOURER. No one actually likes OD. People pick it when it's OP, and they abandon him when he's not OP, plain and simple. So today we'll check how the best players in the world dance their way around this monster of a hero. We're going to start from the safe lane position and crawl our way around the 5 position to see everything you can do to counter this bad boy. The first thing starts with your boots. Yes, your boots. A lot of really good top tier players switch from face boots to treads when they are playing versus OD. Miracle is really famous for doing it on Slark, and PA is another hero that has very low intelligence. Usually when players go treads on PA, they either go Battle Fury for maximum farming power or they have a Magnus in their team. But it's not the case in this game. The Deso build always asks for face boots, but not against this hero. Treads is good for many reasons against OD. Since AG heroes are both low HP and mana, you can always try to tread switch in dire scenarios to survive the hammer, and if you do survive, you might be able to tread switch back to Ent and still use a couple of your spells and win the fight. The second one is Magic Wand. This item is key versus OD, not only because it gives you a little bit of intelligence, but also because the loss of mana versus OD very often becomes the reason you lose a fight versus the hero. Having a wand can really make a difference in the first mid-game fights versus him before you have that BKB. We will leave the counter pick section of this guide to the mid lane, since that's usually the last lane to pick, and thus as a carry, you will not have the luxury of choosing your hero versus him. That said, tip number 2 is prioritizing BKB earlier. Heroes like Void, that like to go, let's say, Mjolnir BKB, can change that build to something like Maelstrom BKB Mjolnir. CK, when he is at his best, at his greediest, likes to go Armlet hard. That's the strongest power spike on the hero. Yeah, when playing versus OD, Monet decided to get BKB instead of hard and purchase it later. That said, this is not the only way to go about it. In another game, I saw a CK going Halberd after Armlet and then the heart. That CK was against Drow plus OD, so the extra HP, the evasion, and disarm probably felt more important than BKB in that game, so you always need to account for everything. Now we're gonna talk about items that give intelligence. Let's say you don't want to go treads on Slark. Then you can do what EUR does here. Drums and Diffusal Blade give you 16 intelligence, and in general, it's easier than going treads since you don't have to tread switch. But every hero is different, and not every hero can go Drums Diffusal, so be mindful. He also goes Say and BKB afterwards, and both items are great since the extra HP and the immunity helps versus him. Juggernaut is another hero that can struggle versus OD because of his low intelligence. That said, this item build is the best way to handle OD when it comes to fixing your intelligence when playing Juggernaut. You don't lose the gap close from face boots, and at the same time you get 51 extra intelligence and a decent amount of HP to deal with being bursted. Maelstrom is pretty much an essential item on Juggernaut, but being against OD and adding the fact that he has in power makes this stat-heavy build amazing. Scotty, even more than Butterfly, is a common item that pros that are playing agility heroes go for. The mix of HP and mana deal really well with OD, and you have to account for the fact that Scotty is amazing versus range heroes at the moment. I mentioned agility heroes, but even CKs and other strength heroes that have very low intelligence can go for the item as well. Unlike Juggernaut, for instance, Lark is a terrible Manta hero. This Lark skips that item, but gets what in my opinion is the perfect OD counter build for Lark and many agility heroes. BKB is always necessary. Diffusal and Drums are pretty good early on, and Basher and Abyssal Blade are the game-winning items. It's just really good on him. OD hates gap closers, and the way he handles that is BKB, but Basher and Abyssal don't give a hoot about it, and those items are just top tier. In another game, you can see pretty much the same build coming from the same Slark player, so, it was not a coincidence. When you're playing Gyrocopter, Eggs is a great compromise against OD. While BKB is maybe safer, more reliable, it's an item that gives you no farm whatsoever. Eggs not only gives you great stats, mana and HP, all things agility heroes lack when they're playing versus OD, it allows you to farm incredibly faster in comparison to BKB. That said, after the eggs, Butter and BKB are awesome. We did say Skadi was good on Agi heroes, but the difference for Gyro is that if you already have eggs, your int and HP are already quite high in comparison to a Slark or PA, making Butter more desirable since your DPS and evasion are great with it. A slight variation I've found for CK instead of going Armlet BKB is the Echo Saber before either Armlet and BKB. I'm not that big of a fan of Echo Saber on CK anymore, but in games you feel like you're going to fight a lot versus OD, it can be an interesting choice since it gives you more raw HP and 10 intelligence, which can be really important on a dumb hero like CK. In this Wraith King game, he had a really bad laning stage, so he opted out of the Radiance build and instead ended up going for Blade Mail and Blink. As we talked about, OD hates gap closers, and Blade Mail is just a really interesting item for Wraith King against this matchup. It gives you intelligence, first of all, and it also makes sure that OD has to go BKB if he wants to focus you in fights. I'm not saying this should be your build every game as Wraith King, but Blade Mail does have value when you're feeling pressured versus that hero. While we established that evasion is great versus OD, this is the second replay with a hero that goes Radiance, going Armlet, Dasso, those bursty items. And there's a reason for this. Lifestealer with Radiance is a hero that slowly wins fights. He stays alive for a long period of time, wears people down, does a lot of damage. The problem with that is that OD is also a hero that loves slow fights. It gives him time for rage to wear off, start getting intelligence, and eventually kill you. By going the Armlet Dasso AC build, not only he can shred the OD up in seconds, he also has more HP than the Radiance build earlier into the game, allowing for better teamfights. Guys, if you didn't find a tip for a hero you play in this guide, note that the carries are usually picked before OD, meaning that the hero you're likely playing is probably good versus OD, and thus, these players are not picking OD when the hero is picked. Maybe the hero that you're playing is not really popular in the pro scene, but if you have any extra questions, leave them in the description. By the way, if you like this type of content, I suggest that you check my Patreon. Not only you can get more content there, you can also help this channel stay free.